Finding those late round players who actually hit and help your team win a fantasy championship is one of the most rewarding aspects of this crazy game we all love and play. So I'm going to identify some players that are going pretty late in dynasty startup drafts, also going very late in your redraft leagues as well. These are guys I think are hidden gems heading into 2023. Hey, real quick before I get into that, I got to remind you once again, flockfantasy.com/endgame. If you're new to dynasty, if you've been thinking about trying dynasty, or if you just want a new dynasty league, check it out. 30% off any subscription. You'll get access to our full Dynasty Startup Training course, going to teach you everything you need to know to dominate a startup draft. You're also going to get access to our Rookie Training course so you can dominate all your rookie drafts. Plus, you're going to get to play Dynasty against myself and Pierre. $100 to first place, $50 to second place, probably shirts, endgame shirts to everybody. Flockfantasy.com/endgame. 30% off gets you access to that. There's only a couple spots remaining in our Dynasty League, so if you've been on the fence, thinking about it, take action now before you miss out. So I'm only going to be talking about players who are being drafted outside the top 100 players, and some of these guys are going outside the top 200 players. So these are guys you don't have to worry about. You could pretty much grab them any chance you want. And I'm going to start with James Cook, running back for the Buffalo Bills. He was drafted last year in the second round. Definitely an undersized running back, but you know what? Nobody seems to care that Jahmyr Gibbs is an undersized running back. Now, I get it. He didn't have the college production or the tape of a Jahmyr Gibbs, but he had good enough college production, great college highlights, and he showed flashes of that last season when he got the chance. So if you look at some of his advanced metrics here, 5.3 true yards per carry. That ranks second among all running backs. Also 6.3 yards per touch. That was third among all running backs. So he's the kind of guy, he doesn't need a ton of touches to be effective. He's got home run ability. He can make explosive plays. And that's also shown here in his breakaway run rate. 12.1% of his runs were breakaway runs, which means runs of 15 yards or more. That led everybody in the entire NFL. All your favorite running backs were behind James Cook in this stat. And he had 11 total breakaway runs, which was 17th. But remember, he played limited snaps. He got limited action. This guy has the juice. And the Bills really haven't done anything to bolster this running back room. Yes, they signed Damian Harris, but he's just going to be kind of the early down thunder. They still have Nyheim Hines, but come on, really, Nyheim Hines? They signed Latavius Murray. Like, James Cook is going to have a sizable role in this offense this year, and we saw down the stretch last year that role increase. I think we see it increase even more this year, and he's currently being drafted just outside the top 100 players in Dynasty startup drafts, so he's absolutely a hidden gem. I don't think people realize how good this guy is and how good he can be in fantasy, but you do now, so make sure you get him when you can. Now let's go to the opposite running back from a James Cook, and that is Brian Robinson, a bigger back, a between the tackles kind of back, not an explosive home run hitting back, but he's the kind of back you like to take late in your drafts, whether it is dynasty or redraft, because he gets a ton of volume. So if you look here at his game log, of course, missed the first 4 weeks, coming back from being shot in the leg, which that alone is pretty incredible. But look at his touches. Week 5, okay, 9 carries, obviously first game back, but then we see 17 carries, 20 carries, 26, 15, 18, 21, 22, 24. These are workhorse level carries. Now, no, he's never going to catch a ton of passes, but that's why he's being drafted this late outside the top 100 players. He's not expected to be some PPR monster. This is a volume-based guy, and when you look at the Commanders, what did they do this year? They let J.D. McKissic go. It's just basically him and Antonio Gibson now. Gibson probably going to be the third down pass catching back. But Brian Robinson locked into 15 to 20 carries every single week. And when you look here, he's currently going as a 114th player in Dynasty startup drafts. And he's going behind guys like Zach Evans, right around a guy like Tank Bigsby, Josh Downs, guys that probably aren't going to produce this year or in some kind of committee. And he's not. He's the lead back on this offense. I think he's an absolute hidden gem in your startup drafts, and he's still going very late in your redraft leagues as well, so don't sleep on him in those formats either. Now let's talk about a receiver, Elijah Moore. I still really like Elijah Moore. There's a lot to like about Elijah Moore. Number 1, he just turned 23 years old. Number 2, he has very high draft capital, a very early second round pick. And number 3, he's been nothing but good if you look past the stats. A lot of people just look at the stats, the receptions, the yards, and think he's terrible. But you got to look deeper. If you saw our video where we had Matt Harmon on the show, you will understand what I'm about to show you. If you haven't seen it, go check it out after this. But basically, this is Elijah Moore in 2022. As you can see, green is good, red is bad. That is a lot of green. Elijah Moore is a talented receiver. He can run a diverse route tree, vertical routes, intermediate routes, short routes. He can do it all. And this is what Matt Harmon has to say. I recommend you subscribe to Reception Perception and go read the full write-up. And he does this for all wide receivers. It's well worth it. But this is what he had to say partly about Elijah Moore. Reception Perception shows there is every reason in the world to continue to bet on Elijah Moore eventually giving us a breakout season. The talent was absolutely still on display in his second season, all while dealing with consistent issues, certainly some of which were of his own making. Players who are this strong as route runners just don't tend to fail. This guy's got years of experience charting these wide receivers. He knows good ones when he sees them. He says, well, I'm really excited about Wilson's fit with Aaron Rodgers, and he talks about Aaron Rodgers there at the end. Obviously, this was before he was traded to Cleveland, but I'd rather him be with Deshaun Watson than Aaron Rodgers because who knows how many more years Aaron Rodgers has, and Deshaun Watson is still young. I think he bounces back big time and becomes an elite quarterback again. And when you look at this offense, you're probably going to have Amari Cooper and DPJ or Cedric Tillman on the outside, and Elijah Moore primarily playing in the slot. That's great for his value. He's still a very talented receiver. This is going to be an offense that certainly throws the ball more than they did last year. And you're currently getting them at pick 129 behind guys like Gabe Davis, really. Kadarius Toney, I kind of like him, but that's a big gamble there. Darren Waller, who's old. This just seems like crazy value for Elijah Moore. Another guy, a hidden gem in all formats, to be honest. All right, let's go back to running back now. I want to talk about Jerome Ford of the Browns. And I can't throw you any, advanced metrics or any cool stats to tell you how good Jerome Ford is because he doesn't have any. He's barely played in the NFL so far. But you got to be encouraged about what's happening in Cleveland for Jerome Ford right now. Namely that there's nobody else there. It's Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, and then I don't know. Dearness Johnson went to the Jaguars. Kareem Hunt, nobody wants to sign this guy. It looks like he is done past his prime, which means Jerome Ford is probably going to slot into that Kareem Hunt role, which you might say, hey, that role was terrible last year. Okay, was it the role or was it Kareem Hunt? Because in years past, that role was great. And if anything should happen to Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford is going to be in a workhorse role behind one of the best offensive lines. Now, I don't think the Browns are going to be as run-heavy as we're used to, but it doesn't matter. Because you're getting this guy with pick 228 in your Dynasty startup drafts. 228, that is basically free. He's well worth a shot. You look at other guys here. Gus Edwards, really. Tim Patrick, 30 years old, coming off ACL. I'd much rather just take a gamble on Jerome Ford, see if he goes into that Kareem Hunt role. And look, should something happen to Nick Chubb, he's getting up there in age. He's getting up there in touches. He's going to be a monster. All right, let's go to a wide receiver that isn't really being drafted in a lot of leagues, Dynasty or redraft, and that is Charlie Jones, 4th-round draft pick of the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, maybe he doesn't do a whole lot in redraft this year, but in Dynasty, I think you need to be taking shots on Charlie Jones. This guy is a burner with 4.4 speed, and when you look at his player profiler player comparison, it's Devonta Smith, who last time I checked is pretty darn good at the game of football. But here's what I really like about his opportunity in this offense. He's a slot wide receiver, or at least he should be at the next level. He's not a big guy. You don't want to put him on the outside getting press coverage. Right now, the Bengals have Tyler Boyd, of course, and maybe they'll roll with Tyler Boyd the rest of the year, and he'll take a backseat to him. But Tyler Boyd is on the last year of his deal. It's highly unlikely they extend Boyd, especially since they're about to pay Joe Burrow a ton of money, and they're going to have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase coming up for contracts soon. And we've seen this offense. They're going to run a lot of 11 personnel. They're going to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. If he's a slot wide receiver in this offense with his speed and his pedigree, he actually was a pretty good producer in college. He's going to be a monster here, and he's basically free in every single format. Not a guy you probably need to target in your redraft leagues, but in dynasty leagues, especially your deeper dynasty leagues, absolutely worth a pick. And then finally, for those of you who are desperate at quarterback, or maybe you're in the Superflex league, look at Sam Howell from the Commanders. It looks like the Commanders are going to give him every opportunity to be the guy this year. All they've done is sign Jacoby Brissett. I thought maybe they would take a chance on a Will Levis or a Hendon Hooker in the second or third round, but they didn't. So it looks to me like they're all in on him, at least this year. All they really did in the draft was bolster that defense. He's got weapons around him, right? Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Gibby out of the backfield. He's got weapons there. He's going to have an opportunity to succeed. And if you look back at his college production, his first 2 years at North Carolina were really, really good. And people were starting to talk about this guy as a first-round pick. And then in 2021, his numbers kind of fell off, and he dropped in the draft, of course, to the Commanders in the 5th round. But what did we see in the one game he played last year? Against a very good Cowboys defense, sure, he only completed 58% of his passes, but first game as a rookie, only threw for 169 yards. But you got to like the fact that he had 35 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. And that's why I think he's worth the gamble here, because what he can do with his legs. He's not one of these guys that needs to throw for 4,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns. He can throw for 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, and rush for another 500-600 yards and another 5 to 6 touchdowns, and you'll be just fine with him, especially if he's your QB2 in a Superflex league. And right now, he's pick number 133, so if, like me, you're the kind of person that likes to get an elite early QB and then wait on your QB2, QB3, QB4s, he's the perfect guy to grab. He's young, he's got potential, he's got the talent, and now he has the opportunity. I'm willing to bet on him. So those are some hidden gems heading into 2023, but if you want to see who my must-have players are, check out this video right here.